Patel, Head of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Group M, US. Lukeisha also serves on our Foundation Steering Committee. Welcome, Lukeisha.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. And my pronouns are she, her, and hers. It is my privilege and honor to introduce to you our keynote speaker for today, Jennifer Remling, author and Global Chief People Officer at WPP. Now, I'm going to read her bio because I promised her people that I would do that. But then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Jennifer from an intimate perspective and from the relationship that we have. As WPP's Global Chief People Officer, Jennifer is laying the groundwork for unlocking the creative potential in over 100,000 employees within the WPP network. Central to that is ensuring diversity, equity, and inclusion is embedded in all aspects of the people strategy. Jennifer has a wealth of experience in building high-performing teams and agencies in environments and roles such as Essence, RGA, AKQA, 360i, and most recently, Group M, where she transformed the people team to deliver a world-class people proposition that ensured a fair, equitable, and inclusive workplace for all. Jennifer is passionate about helping people find meaning and purpose in what they do, no matter their background. That's why she published Carve Your Own Road, Do What You Love and Live the Life You Envision, and has made it her lifelong ambition to help as many people as possible reach their full potential. That's the bio. And it's noteworthy, so I had to read it, and now we can tell her team that I did so. But let me introduce you to the Jennifer that I know. I met Jennifer when she was working at Essence as the Chief People Officer, and I was in a meeting, and I heard this unapologetic, enthusiastic, passionate person talk about women's equity. Coming in as head of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I automatically knew that this was somebody that I needed in my corner because she was going to be activating and advocating with me. Fast forward, I had to put together a panel for International Women's Day. And I got to interview Jennifer and learn a lot of personal things about her that actually speaks to a lot about why she's so passionate within her unique lived experience. And she's pretty much an open book. She's open to, just telling you everything that you need to know in order for you to understand why is it that you can live to your full potential. She has such a genuineness about her that it's easy to have a conversation. Having someone in that position in the organization at the time, being able to have this down-to-earth conversation with me about who she is, her lived experience, and why this matters today, and why equity is so important for all, really is what solidified our relationship. Fast forward about a couple of years, I had never actually asked anyone to be my mentor. I just didn't know how to do though. I just didn't know how to do so. And something just said, no, she's the one. And so I called her one day and I said, Jennifer, I don't even know how to ask you this. I don't know what she thought the conversation was going to be about. But I said, can you just be my mentor? Because I've often always had mentors. I've just never asked them. It's the people that you see their actions and you're like, okay, I'm going to jot this down, take some gems from them. But this was one that I wanted to be intentional about. And that's just the aspect of me talking to her. But to see her in action, to witness Jennifer when she has to go to the table and fight for a cause that she's passionate about, where she has such confidence, such courage, no fear. That's something that I want to emulate, especially in her activism for DEI, for the organizations that she and I have both worked within. And so when we were putting together this program on Women Now, I felt like I have to share her. I have to share her with others because you all have to be in the same room with her to hear some of the gems that she's able to present. And I'll just give you a couple of minutes before we started, they said that she was upstairs and I just wanted to say hello and sat down there. And within 10 minutes, I was already in my mind taking notes of things that she was telling me like, no, Lukeisha, I wouldn't do that. Here's how I would address this. And even in doing her bio, she said, just tell them what you know about me. Talk about us. Just be yourself. To have someone that's just able to make you comfortable in who you are, allow you to be your authentic self, but also have the power to make changes and policies and practices within the room is something that's priceless. So now won't you please join me as I introduce this fierce, unstoppable woman, my mentor and my friend, Jennifer Remling.
Thank you, Lakeisha. Wow, that's quite the intro. Thank you so much. And I have a ton of love for Lakeisha. We do have a very special relationship. Through that mentoring relationship, I learned as much and got as much from her as I hope she got from me. So it was incredible. So I'll start out with, it's interesting. I was just listening to the panel just before this, and people kept talking about making space, which, this was not planned in that way. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So what I want to talk about today, see if is it I need a minute? Yep. So I'm going to start out with something that people don't probably know about me. I got married really early and had not finished, I'd gone to college, I dropped out. I wanted to be a fashion designer and they told me I had no skills. So I got married and then, he had 2 kids from a previous marriage and it wasn't good. And I got divorced and I went back to college. So I graduated when I was 29 and I felt behind, from my peers, and I really wanted to make an impact. So I set these goals for myself, that were really largely superficial. At the time I thought these were the right goals to have a title, to have a career and all of that. So I achieved those goals and found out that I was quite unfulfilled. So, in 2006, this is me. I was in a job that I hated, working with people that I wasn't inspired by, doing work that I wasn't inspired by, sitting in traffic, commuting every day, which then seeped into my personal life, so my personal life wasn't fulfilled either. So I didn't quiet quit, I really quit. And there's never any quiet quitting for me. So I started my own company. I started a recruiting executive search firm. And my husband at the same time started his own architecture firm. And we decided that we wanted to kind of seek a little bit and figure out what life was about. So we loved Airstreams. So this is not an Airstream. This is a younger, hipper version of me. But we wanted an Airstream, or he did. And so we talked. Do you guys know what those are? Those silver iconic trailers. So we talked Airstream into giving us one. And we traveled around the country way before van life was cool. This was 2007. And I got a satellite dish on top of it. We ran our businesses from the road and I interviewed people who had midlife, mid-career, quit their jobs or to do something meaningful or purposeful, or they'd figured out within a corporate structure how to do something along those lines. And I didn't have a book deal at the time, but I was curious and I was hoping to get a book deal. And so ultimately we did get a book deal and the book got published in 2009. As Lakeisha said, it's Carve Your Own Road, Do What You Love and Live the Life You Envision, which is a mouthful and sounds a little bit corny, but it really changed my life. So, when I decided that to kind of go back into corporate after about 4 years of doing my own company, I had a bit of a pit in my stomach. But the reason I wanted to do that is I really missed being part of a team and part of a bigger vision and a bigger structure. So I, with heart in hand, I took a job at 360i, but I did it with a lot of intention and purpose. So I said, if I'm going to do this, I want to really be conscious of what I'm doing. I want to do it with impact. I want to do it my way. I want to do it on my own terms, which is not the easiest thing to do in the corporate world, but that was, how I came into it. And then not long after that, I got a really great job at AKQA prior to them being acquired by WPP. So I kind of went through that experience. And then I went to RGA for about 4.5 years, which was incredible. And then Essence, which had just been acquired by WPP, then Group M, and now WPP, which I have a little bit of whiplash. And never, ever, ever in a million years did I think I'd be doing this job. I was definitely not voted most likely to succeed. I struggled through school. I think I got a C average, barely got into, it was just, I was not a focused young person. So, getting to this job is, pretty incredible to me. But I think it's just really important around the notion of finding purpose. And I think that, the next slide here. So this was interesting because I listened to the previous panel and, as I came back in to corporate, I wanted to kind of strive for balance. And I think balance to me, there's no such thing, right? But what I've learned is it's sort of balancing the round. And so when I look at my week, I'm like, I know that like these 4 days are going to be like full on. They might be 12 or 13-hour days or whatever. And then by Friday, I'm going to shut down. So you kind of just sort of, I take it like in big chunks, not like, I'm going to balance every day, but it's going to be sort of in the round. And sometimes it might even be a few weeks where I'm on the road. But I think the key thing is just, you're not striving for perfection, but you're looking for those moments where you can take care of yourself and you can, take a moment to reflect, take a moment to take care of others, sort of having that in your mind. And I think this is really important as a leader. And I think for any of us who lead teams, really helping our teams do the same thing. And what I've learned, I have people on my team. I have, Josh on my team who just had his second child who's 9 weeks old. Robin has, a 6-year-old who is just changing schools. Shannon just moved with her 2 kids. So I work with everybody differently. Like, what do you need? What do you need for balance? How are you best suited to operate? And I'm trying for us to set the example for others, because everybody's life is different. Everybody's experience is different. And I think we need to allow for that, especially as we're sort of coming, back in more from COVID. I think the other thing too is COVID was really, really hard. I think it was really hard I don't know that anybody sort of got through it perfectly. For me personally, it was hard because my mom passed away. And then I found, having to take care of my dad, who's 84, and sell their house and get him moved, and I was in a big job. And in that job, as most of we're trying to take care of our employees and our people through COVID. So that was a really, really difficult time. And I think, and I've been really open at work that was a struggle for me mentally. And I had to take a break and I needed time. And then sometimes my fuse was short, or I was emotional. So going through that myself, I've, tried to bring that to our leadership team so that we're thinking about people in that way, because everybody's going through stuff. But I do think that there's some silver linings that we can sort of pull forward into the future. I think people learned through COVID to spend more time with their families, to take better care of themselves, to get out and walk and be in nature. I think many, many people moved, self-included. I restructured how, we live our life. I know many people did the same thing. So I think we don't want to lose that, right? I think as we start to think about how do we bring people back and how do we do a new way working, how do we not lose the things that we gained is sort of what's in the back of our minds at work. So I was going to talk a little bit about what we did to sort of, there's some questions around how do we go about this? And I'm just gonna be honest, we don't have the answers. And those of you, I know there's people in the room who work for a WP company. This is not in any way figured out, but it's just illustrative of some things that we've tried and that we're like kind of building on. So this summer, we realized that everybody was burnt out. People are working super long hours, on video. I think people's schedules now are like, you start earlier, you end later, you get back online after dinner, so we were noticing that people were just really, really tired. So we decided as a company that we were going to shut the whole company down for a 4-day weekend, which is all 110,000 employees in 110 markets, which had never been done before. And I remember being in leadership meetings like, oh yeah, the clients that can never happen. And, all the stuff that you hear. So, but we decided as a leadership team that we were going to do it. And we called our clients and said, look, we're going to do this. We're going to shut down. And our clients loved it. And they were like, oh, wow, maybe we should do something like that. So it ended up being a really positive thing, not only for our people, but for our clients. And we also, after the long weekend, we did a week in the office where we did events, where we brought people together to inspire people, to celebrate creativity. And we wanted to celebrate, we won Creative Company of the Year at Cannes. So we wanted to recognize everybody for all the hard work in getting there. So instead of me talking about it or sharing the results, what I'd like to do is share a video that will hopefully give you a sense of what it felt like.
Hi. Greetings from New York. Goodbye, Belfast.
Goodbye, Mexico. Thank you, WPP, for allowing us this space.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. step away and really enjoy other aspects of life.
Time to refresh, rejuvenate, and then also reconnect.
This initiative is fantastic. It's lovely to kind of bring everyone under the WPP umbrella together in one space.
Looking at kind of openness, enjoying family, to realign, reset.
And take the time to log off, step away.
It's a must do. We do need more and more of these. It's great to collaborate. It's great to meet people that you email or speak to on Teams.
This whole event has been absolutely perfect in listening to other people who do other things and thinking, I never thought about that.
Seeing everyone engage with everything that we've done and kind of interact with one another and connect with one another. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm genuinely so excited for my long weekend.
Can't wait to take the time to refresh, regroup, and bring my best self back today.
So hopefully that gives you a flavor. And I think, I was in our New York campus when we were doing this, and we partnered with our ERGs to really kind of develop the content. And they also had a platform to do some events. We did employee headshots. We did rooftop happy hours. We had a DJ party the last night. We brought in exercise influencers. We brought in Pusha T. We brought in Jay Ivey, who you just saw. I mean, it was an incredible 3 days. And I think the thing that I felt, I got to talk to a lot of our employees that I'd never met and a lot of our, more early career employees. And what people were saying was the thing to them that matters is the opportunity to engage with content, to learn, to meet other people across the group. We also gave our employees the platform to get up on stage. So we had an event called Ignite, where they could put an idea forward and they could get up on stage, so they give people the experience and the exposure to get out there and try it. So it was just a really exciting week. So what we're trying to do is figure out how to build on that and making space a platform. So we're already doing more events. So we're actually partnering with our clients. So we're doing some client-led events on commerce, and we had Amazon in recently. We've got Coca-Cola. So we're doing a lot of different things with it. Like I said, we don't have it figured out. I can assure you, we're trying. And I think what's difficult for a company like WPP is, we have, like I said, we have 110,000 employees, but 97% of our people sit within an operating company. So what we're trying to do is, we know that, it's kind of like your operating company is your family, but you're part of the WPP community. So we're trying to democratize, learning, access to development, so using both in-person and virtual events so that you are inclusive. So there's a lot of different things that we're trying to figure out, and it's, we're kind of test, learn, and iterate. So I just wanted to share that because I thought, it was a good experience for us, and we're trying to build on it. I think one other thing, as we start to think about where we go from here, is that we can't put the genie back in the bottle, right? I know I've been looking at what companies are saying and trying to do. And I think the worst thing we can do is to try to go back to what it was. Because, I think, let's be honest, that wasn't working, right? I don't think people thought that was great. I know I didn't. I personally don't want to be in the office 5 days a week. I have not been in the office 5 days a week for a long time, because I need time for myself on Friday, because I usually work really, really long weeks. And I think we've got to let people be adults and figure out when they need to be in and for what reason. It's not the easiest thing to do, because it's hard to know, how to direct, I think, leaders and managers. How do we give them the space and the tools that they need to do it? So to me, I think it's really, we're on a journey, right? I think we're all trying to figure it out. And I think all of us need to give each other space. The leaders need to give our people space. The people need to give our leaders space to try to figure it out. But I think it's an exciting time. I'm hopeful that it will lead us to a better place. I know we're in the messy middle right now, but I'm super hopeful about it. I think the other thing I wanted to mention is that, Microsoft does some amazing work. I don't know if you guys ever check out their work trend indexes. They have a ton of great data, but they're talking about employees have a new worth it equation. And this is something that we've been really paying attention to because, employees care so much more about culture, purpose, and well-being than they did pre-pandemic. And I think I'm seeing that personally in the conversations I'm having. And people are holding their leaders way more accountable than they were before, which I think is a great thing because it's forcing the kind of conversations that we've been needing to have for a long time. And I think it's, when you think about purpose and meaning in your work, we have to walk the talk. So I think that this is a key one that everybody should be paying attention to. And I think if you look at the Gen Z and millennials, how are we making work really impactful and exciting for those groups? How are we thinking about early career? I know some of the conversations earlier is like when somebody starts, if they're like on a laptop, how do we get them engaged so that they can grow and learn and watch others? So it's kind of trying to find the right mix. So this, this is just a picture of like some of the work that we're trying to do. Where we're headed is we're trying to really invest in our campuses. So I think if you think about a workspace, like I went into our office on the 11th floor, we're in World Trade Center, and it's like a sea of desks. And I'm like, that is so uninspiring to me. So like I called in like the facilities and most people, I'm like, this does not work. Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to rethink this? Because I think the way people want to work now is they want collaborative space. They want offices or rooms that they can go into for the kind of private conversations that they need to have. They don't want to come in and sit on video calls at a sea of desks, So we're trying to really rethink more like, I would say, hospitality. So if you think of like a Soho House, or you think of like how WeWork, I think WeWork had some really good ideas. We're trying to rethink our spaces around that so that we can really, it can be a more inspired, place for people to come together. And I think this is one, I don't know, this slide was kind of funny when I was looking at it this morning. What I wanted to talk about here is there's two words that I've kind of been reflecting and meditating on lately. And it's grace and generosity. So I feel like if we could all really do more along those lines, and I'll say what it means to me. And I'm going to be really honest, I don't get it right all the time. I mean, I can find even yesterday when I was in a moment not being graceful or gracious. But I think that, to me, it's sort of like be gracious with, when you're standing in line and you don't have time, or being gracious when you don't really feel like it. Being gracious, with others and giving people space. And then I think in terms of generosity, it's sort of like being generous with praise. I think that's such an easy way to be generous with people. And I think a lot of times people don't do that. And I'm trying to get better at it and trying to, like, in those moments where I see somebody do an amazing thing or say something amazing, call it out. One of the practices that I've been learning to do is when I'm in a room and I see somebody do a great presentation, I'll send them an email and just say, oh my gosh, that was so great. And like people, they're like, oh my gosh, nobody told me that. I'm so glad to hear that it went well. So I think those little things mean a lot, especially in this world that we're living in now. There's so much happening in the world. So I'm trying to really embody that. And like I said, not getting it right. I mean, the other day I was at the airport, I'll be honest. And I did like 3 loops around the lounge and I couldn't find a seat. And then I saw a seat and the woman saw it at the same time and I took it. And I'm like, kind of a jerk. But I was tired of carrying my bag. But it's just sort of, I'm trying to be really more conscious about it. And I think at work, trying to do the same thing. So that's just something I've been thinking about a lot. And I think the other thing that's kind of interesting to me too is, and I hate to say this, but I think it's the truth, it's going to continue to be a bumpy road. If you look at the geopolitical issues, the social issues we're facing, climate change, on and on and on. I mean, it's kind of a barrage of things. And I think it's important, though, to keep perspective. I am ultimately optimistic and hopeful. And I think, so just some things that help me that I wanted to share. I don't watch the news. I make that like an absolute rule. We do not have a TV, except for in one room that we go in there to intentionally watch it and watch content. I do have to pay attention to the news because of my job, because I have to be informed. But I think the thing about the news is that it's toxic in a way, because it's so editorialized today, and it puts you in a state of constant like frustration and fear. And I think it's important to know what's going on, but just in I read, like, I have 5 things that I read. I read the BBC, I read New York Times, I read The Economist, and I read, I do like the news, Apple News thing, and I get a little bit of culture, like people in there, but but I think, it's important to do that in small doses so you can keep perspective. The other thing that I find absolutely like imperative for me is like, I do walking meditations, and I have like one that goes for an hour and 15 minutes, and I do it outside in nature, and I try to do it like 3 to 4 times a week. And that's the thing that keeps me grounded, because these jobs, I think for all of us, you're always on your phone. There's stuff coming at you from all these different channels. So it's just, I think finding those kind of practices to help you first so that you can take care of you, and then you can take care of others. Because I think that if you don't take care of you and you get burned out, then it's hard to do your job and hard to like lead. So I just wanted to leave you with that. And that I'm, like I said, ultimately hopeful, but we do have, some tough things in front of us. And so with that, we wanted to just open it up to some questions. I love to have the interactive discussion. I always learn stuff from it, from people's questions. So.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you so much. My name is Courtney, and I work for VML Y&R, a WPP agency.
Hi, Courtney.
I actually did attend in-person Making Spaces at the World Trade Center, and it was an amazing 2-day experience. Also appreciated having the days off prior to. As you continue that programming, what is your vision for like agency teams to take off time or make space to attend the programming?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when we launched that event, we did it pretty quickly. So we did it, we pretty much threw it together. And actually VML Y&R Experience and Commerce helped us do all the production, and they were amazing. So what we're trying to do is like really work with the operating companies like VML Y&R and Ogilvy and others to design the content and the creation of it, and then figure out together how we go forward. So that's the plan. And I think, it can't just happen at World Trade. You guys have offices up at Columbus Circle, Kansas City, elsewhere. So we're trying to figure out how we bring that to life. And we have Landor and Fitch, our other agency, working on the design of that. So yeah, thanks for the question.
Hi, I'm Erica Riggs. I work at OSMG. And I wanted to know a little bit about, as a leader, prior to the pandemic, things weren't fair. In the middle of the pandemic, things are not fair. And as we move forward, things aren't fair. So as a leader, right, how are we creating anew? How are we thinking? How are you all thinking about that? And it looks like WPP has done a lot of wonderful things in terms of making belonging, center belonging. How are you all also engaging in the, I guess, the equitable space?
That's a great question. It's funny. I was looking at all the stuff that was going on, and I kind of liken it to 1,000 blooming flowers. There's all these amazing programs and all these amazing things happening, but like, are they laddering up to drive that kind of outcomes that we want, which I think is what you're asking, right? And so I made a hire earlier this year, and we designed the role specifically to address that because, and I hope I don't offend anybody saying this because, and there's no intent to, but I think when you have somebody who leads D&I out on their own, I think a lot of times they feel like they're out there, trying, and they're carrying the burden of it, and they're trying to push that rock up the hill without having the ability to really drive the kind of change or the outcomes, or more than just influence. So we created this role called, it's the Chief Talent and Inclusion Officer. And so we hired a woman named LJ Louie, who came out of WeWork, and she worked at L Brands before. And I like the fact that she had experience working with multiple operating companies and brands. But really the idea is she owns talent acquisition. She owns DEI, talent acquisition, succession planning, leadership development, early career, learning and development. Like that whole work stream is hers, right? So if you think about like the kind of impact you can have, not just owning the DE&I component, but owning that whole ecosystem. And then she also leads the Inclusion Council. She's coming with me to London next week to do a big meeting with Mark and, the leadership team. So she's got but she has the ability to actually drive the change, right? And I think that's how we do it is, really giving that person the impact role that can truly make those changes. Now, it's going to take time. But I think, and one of the things that we're doing is we're actually starting to put metrics in place. Like what are we working towards, and the board has been asking us for that, which I think is great. And that's all new to me too, by the way, like the board stuff this last year, like the boards are really, really focused on it. And so are our shareholders and our investors, which I think is a great thing. So, we're putting the metrics in place, the measures and all of that stuff, and then also building it into the incentives. And that's how you drive it. But yeah. Sure.
Hi, Jennifer. My name is Nicole Simpson. I'm Director of DE&I for RAP. And I had a quick question for you about, so we all work for these large holding companies and we're all stealing talent from each other.
Yep.
Can you share a little bit of the secret sauce about how WPP is differentiating itself, just to see what we can steal from you?
Well, I think it's through some of the stuff that I shared. If you think about what I've tried to do, I stepped into this job a year ago. And I came out of an operating company, which I think was really important because I brought that experience to the job so that we're doing things that hopefully are impactful to the business. I think that you've got to, like I said, create the community level at WPP. And what is the stuff that we can do at the broadest possible sense that people can it's a benefit for being part of the WPP network, like democratizing learning. We just launched learning academies, for like the metaverse and for MarTech and stuff that anybody who works for a WPP company can have access to. So we did the Next Gen program where we've removed all the obstacles. You don't have to have a college education or even a high school diploma to engage in this 10-week program to learn more about our industry, to have access to our leaders. So we're doing a lot of things around that. That's sort of like I call the broadest possible wrapper for being, what does it mean to be part of our network? Yeah, so that's where we're starting and trying to differentiate.